Namaste. Welcome to the Cārvāka podcast, guys. A very good morning to everyone in India. And if you're watching it anywhere else, you know your time zone. So please take my greetings accordingly. Now, I'm happy. I'm gonna do a very book. Good morning to everyone in India. I'm gonna. Sorry about that. I messed up. Those were some echo issues. I'm sorry. So we restart again. So welcome everyone. Today we're going to be doing a book discussion, and it's this book. If you guys can see, "The Curse of God: Why I Left Islam." It's of my good friend Harris Sultan. Hey Harris, how are you doing?
I'm very good, Kushal. How are you?
I'm good, man. And we were supposed to actually discuss this book a while ago, but then we had some timing issues. So I'm really happy that we finally got into it. And another thing, I think I did my last book discussion a couple of months ago. So there could not be a bigger contrast because the last book I had discussed was with Ratan Sharda, and it was about the RSS. And today we're doing the complete opposite thing. We're discussing Islam and someone's journey in Islam. So, Haris, I want to ask you the first question about this book. Like, I think this should be the first question everybody should ask any author. Is that why did you want to write this book? Like, what came into your mind? Yet, ki book likhni hai or is topic pe likhni hai? So, why did you decide I want to write a book on something like this?
Wow, where to begin? I was an atheist for a long time, and I just decided that something happened in Pakistan in 2017. There was a crackdown on a lot of free thinkers, a lot of atheists, and they were just they were just expressing their views on Islam, and they were pointing out the flaws in Islam. And then there was a massive crackdown in supposedly a democratic society, and that kind of angered me a little bit. So that's why I started becoming more public about my criticism of Islam, and that just made me what happened to Ayaz Nizami and a few other bloggers. That kind of angered me to actually start speaking about Islam. And then I think the next step would have been I was writing blogs, I was making a lot of posts, I was creating videos criticizing Islam, but it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't thorough enough. And I thought the only way to get across to people would be writing a book. So with a book, you can actually, if you read one book of an author on any given subject, you can make a very good understanding of the person's thought process. You can make a very good guess where he's coming from, what are his main points against if he's writing for or against any given subject. So that's why I thought writing a book would be the right thing to do. I can't answer everyone about every other subject, so that's why it's easier for me to say just go buy my book, and you can see what my views are.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing I wanted to talk to you about is look, the whole concept of writing books on atheism or the journey of atheists has actually become kind of in vogue post 9/11, right? We can say that, right? Post 9/11, we've
Yeah.
had this culture of a lot of atheists coming out and writing books. So, credit to Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, and Daniel Dennett to start that trend. And we've always had, at least people out of the Christian faith, and in India, actually, a lot of people in the Hindu faith have also, usually Marxist, but people have been writing. There was this major marketplace where actually a lot of people from Muslim backgrounds were not writing books about them coming out as open atheists. Even in the West, if I'm trying to remember, I know Ali Rizvi has written it. I've read his book. I've read his book, and I really enjoyed reading it. But I was really trying to go through it. There were no personal journeys. As in, okay, I was a Muslim and I came out, and this. I know Ayan Hirsi Ali is another major book writer. She's written, I think, a couple of books or three books. I would not classify Majid Nawaz in that category because he's not an atheist. He's just a Muslim reformer. So why do you think that is the case, that at least in the mainstream, I'm talking about books that catch major mainstream eyeballs. Why do you think that is the case, that not a lot of Muslim authors, like ex-Muslim authors or atheists like yourself or Ali Rizvi, why hasn't been there and a sort of an explosion? Like in the Christian world, there was an explosion of authors. So why do you think that has been the case with the Muslim world?
Well, okay, baby steps. Throughout at least the history of the last couple of hundred years in the West, there have been a lot of free thinkers who've been writing against Christianity. And now they call it, okay, this is a new atheist movement post 9/11, where a lot of writers have started writing. I mean, Richard Dawkins and Bertrand Russell are probably the only older ones who wrote atheistic books in the last century. But this in the 21st century, we had this explosion of atheistic books, especially in the West. And Ibn Barak wrote a book in the Muslim world, but apparently every person I speak with, every educated ex-Muslim atheist I speak with, they've read Ibn Barak's book. I hadn't actually read it until a lot later. I initially had read Hitchens and Dawkins' book. Dawkins was the first one for me, and this is why I think in the Muslim world there hasn't been as many books written on the subject of atheism from an Islamic background perspective. So that's why I thought it is the right time to write a book on that. The reason why it hasn't been done, the ex-Muslim atheist movement is actually quite new. Even if you call the ex-Muslim movement, where you can include ex-Muslim converts to Christianity or other religions, even if you include them, that movement is still fairly new. The term ex-Muslim itself is only about 10, 11 years old now. I think Maryam Namazi popularized it. Some people say maybe Ayaan Hirsi Ali popularized it, but I really think that it was Maryam Namazi who popularized it when she opened the Council of Ex-Muslims of Britain. And then, we had this explosion of a lot of ex-Muslim Facebook groups and pages, which just showed us how vast this movement, how quickly this movement has become. And the biggest reason why it hasn't been done, Ibn Barak and Salman Rushdie are probably the only two ex-Muslim atheists who belong to the last century, and they one never came out in public. Well, Ibn Barak has come out in public in the recent years, but when he wrote his book, he wasn't very public, and we know why, because we could see what happened to Salman Rushdie. He spent the next 10 years of his life under protection. He had to fear for his life, and there was a fatwa issued on him, and same could have happened to Ibn Barak. So I think there would have been a lot of other thinkers as well who could have written books, but because criticism of Islam is so discouraged and is such a taboo, that a lot of people, even atheists and Marxists, Tariq Ali is another underrated last century Marxist ex-Muslim atheist, but he never really wrote about Islam for good reasons. I mean, even though he's an atheist, he's a public atheist, he never really criticized Islam. He's written a number of books on different other subjects, and as I said, he's a communist. But he never really spoke about Islam because, again, writing or criticizing Islam can have dire consequences. And this has somewhat changed a little bit in the 21st century. The threats are still real. If my address was public, I recently received a couple of death threats from Muslims here in Australia after I decided to go to a mosque with Amin Nawabi and just talk about this thing, and people Googled me and then they started sending me death threats. Now these people are in Melbourne, so now I have to be more careful. It's not just the fact that my haters are in Pakistan or in India or Saudi Arabia. They're actually here. So if they want to hunt me down, I could have some really severe consequences. So this is probably the reason why a lot of people actually never spoke about it, never wrote books. And to be honest, writing books is so 18th and 19th and 20th century. The world has changed a little bit. Even books, my videos have had over 1 million views in less than a year, but my book hasn't had 1 million copies sold. So The world has changed. People want their information quick and fast, and they want it to the point. And unfortunately, a lot of people in the Muslim world are not really big book readers either. So that probably could be another reason why a lot of people don't actually write books. What they do is they're actually now starting to make videos on Islam and just giving their monologues on Islam and the criticism. So it's a lot easier to spread your message that way. So I think, yeah, there could have been a couple of factors, but I think the main factor is the fact that you could actually get killed.
Yeah, but isn't it actually quite depressing? I don't even consider Salman Rushdie to be really categorized in the ex-Muslim author group personally, because I don't think so. The Satanic Verses was necessarily a book that is, by the way, it's still banned in India. Satanic Verses, you can't buy it in India. You can buy it on the roads at like an illegal copy or something, but I don't think so it's allowed officially. I mean, anybody on the live chat or anybody who watches this later can correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I remember, it was not allowed to be sold in India. And I think it's about 2-3 years ago, it was the Jaipur Literature Festival where Salman Rushdie was supposed to come and speak. And I remember there was a group of Muslims who had created a huge furor, and eventually they had to cancel his talk.
Yeah.
But well, it is what it is. So basically, yeah, and it's very unpopular to say that, where if you say something like this, there is a certain element in the Muslim community that has basically bullied people into self-censorship. It's very simple, because I see this. I'll tell you. So I have friends in the left wing in India too, and if we are at a dinner table and there is no one recording that conversation, they will be very comfortable in accepting this. Oh yeah, I get it यार, हाँ वो ऐसे होता है, थोड़ा इस्लाम में प्रॉब्लम है, ये है. मैं बोला थोड़ा है, मतलब भाई मेरे, तू सुबह से शाम तक ट्विटर पे या फेसबुक पे हिंदुओं की बजाता है, हिंदूज की बजाता है, तू क्रिश्चियंस की बजाता है. ठीक है, अगर तू आउट ऑफ इंडिया रहता है. चलो इंडिया में इतना नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि इंडिया में वो ऑपरेशन ओलंपिक्स में आ गए हैं. तो पॉइंट ये है कि तू ये कर रहा है मगर तू दूसरे की तो बजा नहीं रहा है, तो तेरे को नहीं लगता तू हिपोक्रिटिकल है? They don't get it apparently. And if you say something like, do you realize they have used violence to shut a lot of discussion down? And then they start calling you an anti-Muslim. You hate all Muslims. In India mein, there is this weird word, they keep using this word communal. You are a communal person if you start talking about Islam. It's very, very frustrating. That word is dropped in every discussion. But so what I wanted to get at is, have you received any kind of pushback for writing this book? Like, have they started branding you as, like, there is this new weird word in the West. I don't know if you have heard this. They don't call you alt-right because they can't prove you're alt-right, but they start calling you something as weird as alt-right adjacent. So have you been called that?
No, I actually have never heard of this term.
Oh,
Alt-right adjacent. So I'm actually guessing. So you are similar to alt-right. No, I actually haven't been called that. The most common criticism that people like me get is, A, you're uneducated, you haven't understood Islam. That's the primary claim that they make. B, they doubt your intentions why you're criticizing Islam, because they believe you are motivated, you're just seeking attention, you are motivated by money, or some people go as far as saying that you are paid by the Indians or the Jews. So these are the kind. With the Westerners can't actually criticize us as much, but those extreme left wingers in the West, they actually do get happy, but they can't say anything because I am a person of color, so they can't call me racist towards my own people. So that is a dilemma they have to deal with. But you can see how what recently happened to Majid Nawaz. A lot of left wingers just came out and said, well, this is the kind of narrative that you have been promoting, hence you deserve to be punched, and hence you deserve to be assaulted. So we can tell that these people, these left-wingers who are actually not attacking people like us, is the fact that they know that there would be a major contradiction in their view by calling us racist or anti-Muslim bigots, because they know that, okay, we're people of color, we're criticizing our own race, just like they criticize their own race and people of their own society. So they can't be called racist; they're just called reformers or correctionists or anything similar to that. And they can't call me anti-Muslim bigot either, because people like us, most of us, have actually, got Muslim family members, and we enjoy a good and healthy relationship with them. There are very few of them. Well, actually, not few of them. There would be a lot more, but they're not, at least the public ones that I can think of. Like Muhammad Saeed or Amin Nawabi or Ali Rizvi, the big ones, Mariam Namazi. These guys have got a good, healthy relationship with their family members who are all Muslims. So they can't even call us anti-Muslim bigots, because we're very careful when we actually do criticize Islam. I don't know of any ex-Muslim atheist who doesn't differentiate between criticizing an ideology and criticizing people as a group of people. So that is why I think we're not giving them much to attack us on. But deep down inside, they actually want us to be shut down. Deep down inside, they actually... I was flabbergasted the amount of hate mail Majid Nawaz got from both extreme right and both extreme left. Extreme rights are calling him, you're still a Muslim doing a taqiyya and all that, and extreme leftists are saying, well, this is the kind of narrative that you've been building, and now this is coming back to bite you in the ass. And I like Majid Nawaz is the king of creating terms and popularizing terms. Although centrist is an old term, but he's actually popularizing this new term about these. It's not a new term. Sorry, it is an old term, being a centrist. But he's actually focusing on the fact that the centrists are getting encircled by the left wingers and the right wingers, and the other two extremes are just attacking a centrist like him, because he is a centrist, to be honest. I mean, he doesn't go full left wing, he doesn't go full right wing. He's sitting perfectly in the middle. And most ex-Muslims, I know, they are actually centrist. The economy policy could shift to left mainly, so you could say that they are sympathetic towards socialism, if not communism. But they're anything but right wingers. So. And I think that's the frustration of the right wingers, because we don't go on. The primary difference between genuine critics of Islam like us is that we definitely despise Islam, but we have to tread carefully. When you are criticizing Islam, how far you go, and whether you go in the domain of hating Muslims. But the primary narrative of the right wingers is, yeah, Islam is evil, and all the followers of Islam are evil. Therefore, shut them down, hunt them down, deport them, kill them, whatever, depending on how far right they are. It's I hadn't heard of that term, but that is the dilemma of the left, especially.
Yeah, but I would not I would only add a caveat here that even within the right wing, I mean, I think most people are center right if we look at it from a Western perspective, and most people on what is called the right wing in America or in the West in general are basically socially they are liberal, and the only difference they have with their left wing friends is on economics. They have major differences on economic policies and the size of the government. That's where the differences lie. Like, I would also say that I usually would not agree with most of my left wing friends on economics. On social issues, I pretty much agree with them on 98% of the issues. Other than gender is a social construct, they can just go to hell. And I believe that's not even a mainstream left wing opinion as of now. That's even an extreme left opinion. So what has happened, in my view, is on both the sides, the extremely violent or vocal minority, whether it's on the left wing or whether it's on the right wing. Although in India, I don't believe India has a proper right wing. India has a left and the people who don't like the left. That's what happens in India. That's what it is in India. And it's funny, most of them, their views on economics are extremely left wing. Like BJP, extremely left wing when it comes to economic views. But still, like in India, that's what I see. In India, the whole, the whole argument is about, why don't you criticize Islam? You have criticized Hinduism all your life. Why can't I criticize Islam? And they don't do it. And the hypocrisy is actually, in 8 out of 10 cases, very open. In 2 cases, I think it's a lot of fear mongering from the Hindutva crowd, which I at least am not part of. I mean, I just find it ridiculous. But now let's get into chapter 2 of your book.
Just before you go further on that, I just wanted to add a point on Salman Rushdie. Yes, he never called himself ex-Muslim. As I said, the term was popularized in the 21st century, the better part of the last decade. I think it was very discouraging that Salman Rushdie, being a citizen of a secular country, of the biggest democracy in the world, his book could not be sold in India. And for good reasons, I understand India has a huge population of Muslims, and despite the fact that the Indian constitution is secular by heart, and it wants to become secular as far as religion is concerned. There could be other issues that we could probably talk about, maybe not in this podcast, but it was a major disappointment that a secular country could actually bow down to the religious extremists and actually make a policy based around the religious people or the demands. And I think this is probably why it was discouraging that Salman Rushdie his book was actually banned in India. If it couldn't be sold in the in the biggest democracy or the
India
biggest.
has never been a country where there was freedom of expression. I mean, I can give you examples from Nehru's time where Nehru would, ban people who used to criticize him. Like, he has banned books, movies. I mean, there's a history. Actually, there's a beautiful clip on Indian mainstream media by this guy called Anand Ranganathan. Anand is a friend, and he's a scientist. And he did this wonderful segment. He was on this debate where you hardly get to speak, but he got lucky. He got 2 minutes to speak. And in those 2 minutes, what he did was he started basically reading the list of books and movies that were banned under Jawaharlal Nehru, the so-called, secular liberal icon of free speech. He's not. He's the one who actually destroyed free speech in India. People don't realize that. Most people don't follow Indian politics.
Yeah, but under what pretense, though? Were they anti-religion or were they anti-nationalism?
Everything. And I'll give you I think a lot of people keep saying the Babri Masjid subject, or 92, 91 was the path-breaking moment in India where, India got divided. No, India did not get divided in 1992. India, got divided in 1947, first of all. And so that's a bullshit argument. But something changed, and what led to Babri Masjid, in my view, is something what happened in India in 1986. This is called the Shah Bano judgment. I don't know if you know about this.
No, I don't.
A Muslim female called Shah Bano. So her husband basically divorced her by saying talaq, talaq, talaq. So, triple talaq.
Oh, yes. Yes, I heard that. Yes.
Okay, so she went to the court. Good on the Supreme Court of India. They said, not okay. Aap isko maintenance doge. So she won the court case, right? So what does Rajiv Gandhi, the then Prime Minister of India, do? The mullahs lobby to Rajiv Gandhi. Rajiv Gandhi cannot take the pressure. He buckles under pressure, passes an act in the parliament that protects the minorities. The so-called secular party of India, Congress, basically gave in. So, when you say you're shocked, that I'm not at all shocked. Actually, it's very natural when Salman Rushdie is not allowed in India, because for us Indians, we know what happens. There is this historical record in India where you just cannot criticize Islam. And I think some of it is coming from the point of view where, what has happened is there is a major polity in India which is scared that humko ek aur Pakistan nahi chahiye. I'm being very honest. उन्हें ऐसा लगता है कि अगर आपने मुसलमानों को बियॉन्ड अ पॉइंट पुश किया ना, तो एक और पाकिस्तान बनेगा, which is, मगर think like a Muslim. This is so condescending from the left wing to the Muslims of India that वो किस किस्म के जाहिल लोग हैं. मतलब एक्चुअली अगर मैं पढ़ा लिखा मुसलमान होता तो मुझे इतनी इंसल्टिंग फील होता ना. मैं बोलता चपेड़ मारूं तुमको, तुम मेरे को जाहिल समझते हो.
Yeah, no, but we can be sure of that it is a bigotry of low expectation, but these arguments or this fear of Indians who don't want another Pakistan, which is a good enough reason, they're not dumbfounded, really. There are good reasons behind it, because we know, you could probably educate me on that what is the literacy rate of Muslims in India. We don't have all of the Muslim population who think like Shah Rukh Khans or Salman Khans who marry non-Muslims. We don't. Some of the comments that I get from Muslims as well in India, that they are extremely they're extremely backward, to put it mildly, and they are controlled by religion. And I think this is the same problem that is happening in the West as well, where free speech is coming under direct threat from no other group other than Muslims themselves. And to keep the peace, the secular governments, whether they're the West, and India is probably the biggest victim of that to keep the peace, they have to appease Muslims, and they have to keep the laws like blasphemy laws, and they have to appease them by banning books and whatever, anything that is religion related, and they have to appease them, which is just a sad thing that India, as I said, the greatest thing this part of the world has ever seen is the secular constitution of India. A lot of people tell me that, there's so many problems in India, the Hindu nationalist and the cow lynchings and this hatred for Muslims and vice versa. But I say at least it is on paper, it is a secular constitution. Pakistan, if they decided to go secular today, the whole country will turn upside down. There will be civil wars. But at least India is, in my opinion, 100 years ahead, because they recognize that it needs to be a secular country. Fair enough, they have lots of problems, and for good reasons. I know that they can't just make everything secular. They can't allow people to start drawing derogatory cartoons of Muhammad, because then the whole country will set alight. But I think somewhere people should show spine, and a lot of people who know me that I am a big supporter of Imran Khan, but I hated the fact that when he appointed an Ahmadi in his cabinet, but then he kicked him out because of the pressure. And he should have shown some spine there. He should have made some statement, but he didn't. He cowed down to the pressure that he got from the extremists in Pakistan. And I think same place in India, even though it is already probably 100 years ahead of Pakistan, because at least on paper is secular, I think there should be some moments when India should show a spine to these Muslims who threaten the Indian values and the Indian secular values. And what I've learned is that it's not only just the modern India's values, it's actually very ancient Hindu values. To have compassion for the Gnostics, to be able to leave Hinduism or the dogmatic aspects of it without any repercussions. So these are Indian values, and within India you have people who challenge these values, and the government is held hostage, and they can't do anything about it.
Yeah, I would only add one more caveat here before we move on into the book, that India is selectively secular. India is secular in some aspects, and India is not secular in many aspects, and that is for some other day. But look, I take pride.
But before you go, no, I agree with you. But we've already discussed that. This is probably mostly, in my opinion, mostly because of the religious element of Muslims. Do you think if it wasn't for the Muslim what would be the right word? If it wasn't for the Muslim fight back, then India would not have been selectively secular.
Yeah, India would have been far more secular then.
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah, India would be far more secular. See, India is what I call a country that says it's secular on paper, but the real thing about India is a plural country. And why is India plural? Is, like you said, it is because of the structure of Hinduism. It is a plural religion. So what has happened is plurality is basically an epistemology in India. And like a lot of people don't realize that why do Indians think the way they do? And I try to make a scholarly case of that is because I studied the Indian philosophy. And when you look at Indian philosophy, it is actually a very plural philosophy. It basically talks about multiplicity of viewpoints, and you have to live with multiple viewpoints. And that is the reason that Indian plurality trumps this phony constitution. And like I say this not out of bigotry, I always say that India is a democracy because India is dharmic. You don't like the word Hindu, leave it aside. India is dharmic, India is plural, India is righteous. That's why the larger, and I include the majority Indian Muslims in that, by the way. I don't exclude them, because the majority of Muslims of this land, of this subcontinent, they have imbibed those dharmic values, those values where they are very Hindufied. They are not very Islamic. What worries me after the 1970s and the Gulf money pumping into our area, our region, which is Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, this area, the Gulf money coming in, that is vitiating our version of our religiosity and our paths of life. That is what my worry is. I have always worried about that. और अभी सऊदी अरेबिया का राजा आके गया है, पाकिस्तान को 20 बिलियन बोल के गया है, हमको 100 बिलियन बोल के गया है. तो अब ठीक है, वो तो सरकारी कामों में पैसा जाएगा, वो सब ठीक है, मगर द पॉइंट इज माय वरी इज दैट एस्पेक्ट. And definitely, like sometimes a lot of people get angry in India and say, अरे बंटवारा बराबर होना चाहिए था, सारे मुसलमान उधर चले जाने चाहिए थे, सारे हिंदू इधर आ जाने चाहिए थे. मतलब
but then you would have lost more land.
yeah, and first of all, it was not possible. क्या पागल लोग हैं, साउथ इंडिया में बैठा हुआ मुसलमान, क्या उसको तुम पंजाब भेजोगे तो पागल हो जाएगा, उधर उसकी कोई भाषा नहीं, उसका कोई कल्चरल कनेक्शन नहीं, करेगा क्या उधर जाके, वो बोलेगा किधर आ गया मैं, किधर फंस गया. So it's a very different thing, but it's okay. I think I always think about it like this. Look, we are a 71-year-old democracy. It's a work in progress. We are good at some things. We are bad at some things. But I have faith in the innate plurality of this country and this country's ethos. And this is why, in spite of being a rabid materialist, I am actually, people don't realize, I'm very rabid in my materialism. Like, I'm not one of those atheists, who thinks there is something out there. Like, I don't call myself an atheist, but if somebody sat down with me and started having discussions on specific issues, they'll be like, baap re, ye to bahut rabid hai. But I don't need to. I don't go out there saying, oh, you suck, you suck, you suck, because I was not raised like that. In my country, it was never an issue. And that's maybe, I think that is the distinguishing characteristic between India and Pakistan, the ethos. What is the ethos of Pakistan? What is the ethos of India? The ethos of India is very dharmic, and the ethos of Pakistan is Islamic. It's just that difference. But now I want to go into the book. I want to start. See, I'm going to pick a few chapters which I wanted to discuss with you, because you have to read the book, guys. And that's the whole point of having So, chapter 2, which I found very interesting, you start, and I was like, isne to chalu hi punch maar ke kiya hai, kind of a thing. So you take this topic of the necessity of religion, and it's very interesting that you chose a quote, and I want to read that quote. It's the quote is of Lawrence Krauss on Christopher Hitchens at the Atheist Annual Convention 2012, where Krauss says, Christopher Hitchens understood that the universe doesn't care about our existence and our lives have meaning only to the extent that we give them meaning. Now, this is a very, very, I'm going to use a Urdu word, pechida mamla. So this is a very complicated issue. I think sometimes religion, conceptually, when I talk about religion, I'm just talking about religion, a memeplex. I'm not talking about Islam, because your book's focus was obviously Islam. But I think there is a lot of dismissal of religion and its value to human beings within neo-atheistic circles. What they think, so there is a classical Dawkinian view where religion is a mind virus. We need to get rid of it, lock, stock, and barrel, smash it, break it down, destroy it, and when it's down, stomp even more so that we make sure it never rises again. That's the Dawkinian.
And that's a Sultanian as well. I subscribe to it.
Yeah, so I know. So that's why we're going to have this discussion. Then there is the old school materialist atheistic view, where people like myself or Brett Weinstein, Eric Weinstein, we fall into that camp. We don't like a lot of claims religion makes, but we look at religion from an evolutionary lens, and it makes total sense. And eventually it boils down to that you can try, it's not going to go anyways. And even if you replace it with something, it's going to be some sort of a religion. And it is kind of proven with the fact that, Western nations, which got rid of religion in a major way in their society, but religion is making a comeback in two forms. In the form of social justice warriorism, which is a proper religion where there is blasphemy. And it's so funny, they are so Abrahamic. They have blasphemy and apostasy even within that shit. Like, you can't break the norm of the social justice warrior. There is the purity test there too. Just like Abrahamic religions have their purity test, the social justice warriors have their purity test. And then on the other side, you have these large swaths of agnostics who have developed this liking for Jordan Peterson. So even when I see this, so my counter to all the Dawkinian atheists has always been, you may not like it, but it's never going away. It will be replaced by some sort of a memeplex. And to me, religion is a memeplex Now, what has happened is we can remove the supernatural element, but we cannot remove the behavioral tendencies of the human being. So why do you think you disagree with that, or where do you think I'm going wrong?
Okay, a few things there, and I think Jordan Peterson, I don't know, as much as you dislike him, he might actually fall in that category as well when he creates a case for religion, even if you want to call it memoplex. There's no denying the fact that I mean, what differentiates humans from the rest of the species is the fact that we're intellectual beings. We know where we're coming from, we know where we're going, and we want to have a strong opinion on how we're going to shape our lives and the lives of our future generations. That's there's no denying in that, and I'm totally sympathetic to your view that even if you leave religion, by religion I mean if you leave the dogmatic part and the supernatural part of that, there would be something else that is going to replace. In other words, humans are there's always going to be stupid people around, right? That's basically what you're saying. So there's no denying in that. Now the point is, how stupid can we go? Can we reduce one element of stupidity and replace it with another element of stupidity which is slightly less stupid? Ideally, I would hope so. But you're probably right, because now in the 21st century we have people who believe in flat Earth, people who believe vaccine causes cancer and autism, and moon landings were a hoax, and all types of stupid shit. I genuinely believe after the Iron Age, Bronze Age, sorry, the other way around, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and Medieval Age, and after all these ages, maybe 500 years from today, or 1,000 years from today, people are going to look back at this age as the age of stupidity, the stupid age. Fair enough. The ancients didn't know. They didn't have the telescopes. They didn't have the satellites that could actually take photos of the Earth and make good sense of it. They didn't have Einsteins and Newtons. They didn't have Darwin, who could actually explain the origin of life, or sorry, origin of species, not origin of life. We still don't have origin of life. We don't know what caused life. But they didn't have any of those. We did. We do. And still, we have people who believe that dinosaurs never existed. We have people who believe the Earth is flat. We have people who believe that it's the sun that goes around the Earth. How do you explain that? And to be honest, I've actually seen in these flat Earth society, I always go there every now and then just for amusement, just for laugh. I don't comment, I don't like or anything. I just silently observe some of the arguments. I just go there for fun. And some of these people are actually atheists. But I must admit that most of them, as far as flat Earth society is concerned, they are actually hardcore Christian nutbags, because they believe that Christianity somehow demonstrated the flat Earth model. And as you might have seen in my book, that there are at least, I think, 13 verses in Quran which actually indicate that the Earth in the Quran is actually flat Earth as well. So I was actually surprised that because, let's be honest, Muslim world is actually running 100 years behind, not only just in the matter of technology, but also intellectually as well. So they haven't seen most of these arguments. Some of the comments that I get from people are like, wow, have you not heard what Aquinas's cosmological argument was, or what Bertrand Russell had, the teapot argument, etc. So the watchmaker argument, etc. So Muslim world is intellectually 1,000 years behind, or at least most of them. Technologically, they might only be 100 years behind. So these people, I'm actually waiting for an explosion of the flat Earth society believers in the Muslim world, because once they read religion more, once they read Islam more, and the 13 verses that I spoke about in the book, once they read that more, they're going to say, nah, my God is real, Islam is real, therefore everything in the Quran is real, therefore flat Earth society must be true. And it's more sexy to believe that it's just a big, massive conspiracy of the big scientists of the NASA to tell us that the Earth is round. So I'm actually waiting. So mark my words. Don't be surprised if in the next 5-10 years you see a massive explosion of flat Earth believers in the Muslim world. So stupid people are always going to be there. At least in the case of flat Earth society, the motivation is coming from religious doctrine. Whether that was Christianity, and maybe I'm biased, that's why I'm saying that Muslims are going to have a similar problem when they actually learn more about Islam, and then they're going to be believers of the flat Earth society. So look, I mean, I'm okay with it. That stupid people are always going to be there. They're always going to come up with something stupid. The social justice warriors that we see, they're always going to be there. There might be even more of them. But the social justice warriors, people speak of them as some really evil and dumb, stupid idiots who have no place in the 21st century. They're not really. Of course, sometimes they go really far in their war on social justice. But a lot of good has come out of that too. I mean, if you look back at the original feminist movement, the civil liberties movement, these were social justice warriors. Some would even say the ex-Muslims are actually social justice warriors as well, because we are demanding social justice. We are demanding people to recognize they're ex-Muslims, they're atheists. Sure, you don't want to agree with us, but at least don't fucking kill us. So someone could say we are actually social justice warriors as well. But then you have the fourth wave feminists, then you have these ISIS sympathizers who say, well, they are also people, and, turn the other cheek kind of mentality. And in the hatred for the right, they would actually go as far as accepting violent jihadists, for instance. So, and believe it or not, there are actually people there. There's two girls who were killed in Morocco a couple of months ago. I think, if you remember, they were beheaded by ISIS warriors. They were exactly those kind of left-wing, tree-hugging social justice warriors. Because the Facebook post showed that, you can convince anyone with love, and they believe that ISIS people are also humans. They're not going to do any harm to me. And they learned the lesson. They got beheaded. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, I really feel bad for those girls. I think it was a girl and a boy, or maybe both were girls. I can't remember. Oh yeah, I think it was a couple. And that is, unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to hurt the family, but that kind of attitude proved fatal. I know what I'm doing is dangerous. I'm not going to go, to any Muslim country anytime soon. Not even in Pakistan, unfortunately, because I know shit can happen. I've got to get real. But at the same time, I don't have to antagonize Pakistan or other Muslim countries so much that they think that I'm driven by my emotions. So look, I mean, I agree with you. Sorry, I really rambled for quite a bit of time. But yes, stupid people will always be there. Stupidity will always be there. But at least we can remove one stupid element of humanity by continuing to fight against at least the supernatural bit of religion. You want to call it? You want to call the believers of flat Earth as a religion as well? You want to call, some people even call atheism a religion as well. You want to call it? Fine, go for it. My problem is with the supernatural religion, and I subscribe to Dawkinian path. That is the religion, and I'm sure Dawkins is talking about the same religion. To stomp on it, kill it, make sure it never raises its head again, and just keep fighting against religion. And that's supernatural religion. That's what we mean by religion.
Okay, I get it. But see, here's the interesting aspect. What I'm trying to say is, I'm with you when it comes to challenging supernatural beliefs, what I call booga booga. I'm against all booga booga. I mean, any unsubstantiated claim, I'm not going to buy it. It does not matter which religion or which panth, which sect talks about it. Hindus claim about reincarnation, karma. I don't buy it. It's not true. In my view, there is no evidence for it. Obviously, I'm going to be ultimately going to be agnostic to it, because you can't prove a negative or you can't disprove a negative, right? It's like, the deistic God. You can't prove or disprove a deistic God. It's a via negativa concept. So I get that. But here's my problem. What has happened isn't there?
Very quickly there. I've struggled with this notion that you can't prove the negative. And Neil deGrasse Tyson will disagree with you. He says science is actually all about proving the negative. But anyway, I don't totally agree with his stance on that, because I think science, yes, can prove the negative. But he doesn't. I mean, I'll probably let you get on.
Look, it's a very common thing, right? The classic case is the Russell's teapot. Like, wow, I will say there is a teapot in the sky. You can't prove me wrong. I can't prove myself right. And so you have to be agnostic to some positions at a rational level. That's what I'm trying to say. It's called the Russell's teapot, right? The position. But my problem is there is something in our biology which makes us crave structures and certainty, or some kind of a what I call a scaffolding to live our lives with. So I found this very interesting survey on Pew, which basically, it was restricted to atheists in America. So I accept that with all humility, that it's not pan Western world, but it was about atheists in America. It was very interesting. So they tested them on 4 specific views. One was everything is energy. One was psychic claims. One was astrology, and there was another one. I don't remember all.
Homeopathy. I think the other one was homeopathy.
I don't remember which one was that. And 22% atheists had one or the other. So what I'm trying to say is that there is this false sense amongst atheists that all theistic people are irrational. I'm not saying you believe that. Don't get me wrong. I know you don't believe that. But there is this trope being sold among atheists that, these theists are irrational. No. We are.
I do believe that when it comes to religion, though. I don't believe overall they're irrational.
My point is, we are all selectively irrational. The social justice warrior who has convinced himself or herself, or in their case, gender is a social construct, so I can't even use his or her for them. So they have convinced themselves about this irrational belief about how the world is, and in their irrationality they start behaving like religious people. Actually, they are just like religious people. They don't have a supernatural deity. So what I'm trying to say is, there is more to the religious essence than just supernatural beliefs. The largest game in town was the supernatural belief and clinging on to it and making ridiculous claims after that. I'm not into that. What worries me is you replace one horse shit and put on another horse shit. That's my problem. So my fight is not with the religious people of the supernatural side. My fight is with both of them. That's what I'm trying to say. And what I find is a lot of neo-atheists these days have clinged on to that left-wing religion, which bothers me equally. If you're an atheist which says, that's bullshit, and I'm not on board with all of it, I don't care. I see a lot of that missing, especially in left-wing atheists, which is a problem to me. I think religion is an adaptation. Religion is here to stay. It will go on molding as more and more science keeps challenging religious values. And in the end, I see religion becoming a community center. So like a temple will be a community center. People will go there. They'll do their thing. A mosque will be like a party hall where people will do certain, rituals where it might become a dance move eventually. I don't know.
It already has. It already has.
Yeah.
Haven't you seen those bearded men, at least in Pakistan, the sects of Sufis, where they just dance and then electrifying dance? Yeah, but it already has. Yeah.
Like I have a confession to make. Like I once in a while I'll go to the Hare Krishna Aarti, where they do a fantastic Aarti, the whole ritual. They pray to the Lord Krishna, they dance, they sing. I like watching them. It's a lot of fun. And obviously their food is amazing. So I like the prasad at the end too. So I'll just go there. I don't even care. I'll also do this in front of their murti. I got no issues. I don't believe it's anything divine in it, but I don't mind it. Yeah, that's fine. And I'll go there. But I like watching them. It's a lot of fun. By the way, I actually like the Sufis too. I like their whole circular dance and the way they sing and they have their coordinated movements. It's fun. So if religion can actually, kind of evolve into fun and dance, oh no, everything is mental gymnastics, we can change the terms. I got no issues, but you would have an issue with that, right?
Yes, I would have an issue with that because I know that these people who are doing it, they're doing it for a different reason. I mean, what is the difference between a Sufi dancing on someone who's singing something in Arabic, praising Allah and Muhammad and all these things, and or some other saint? What is the difference between that and Miley Cyrus concert? But
Nothing.
people, yeah, there is no difference when you look at it. Okay, well, they're just dancing, they're having some fun. But Miley Cyrus dances are actually acknowledging the fact that, okay, we're enjoying the music, we're enjoying the lyrics, we're enjoying her beauty or dance moves or whatever. But these people are still somehow deluding themselves by lifting themselves up to this other dimension where they think that they're connecting with God and His prophet, or with the angels, or they're raising their spiritual level. That's where I have a problem with that. I said, fine, of course you can do whatever you want, but at least don't delude yourself. At least don't lie to yourself. And that's why I would laugh at people who are dancing in those Sufi events rather than people who are dancing in at Miley Cyrus's concert. Even though if someone makes a fool of himself, I would laugh there as well, but totally for different reasons. So yeah, so that I mean, I don't know. I think you said maybe we're all too irrational at some point. I don't necessarily agree with that because I like to think I am rational to the point where I see and where I understand rationality. The moment I realize that I'm irrational about something and a convincing argument has been presented to me, I would change my position. So I think there are people who are inclined to stay more rational than there are people who were happy. How many Muslims you'll run across and they would say, well, yeah, okay, it's just a matter of faith. It's one of the common arguments with the religious believers. They say, well, it's just a matter of faith. You can't prove it. You can't disprove it. I'm happy being believing in God, and that's it. I don't need any rationality. I don't need any reason. And I think our war against these people for attacking them for the irrationality, I think it's working because these people are feeling that they are being perceived as some stupid people. And it is in human nature to actually counter stupidity, even if they don't know that they are the ones who are actually being stupid. But they want to give you an answer. How many Muslims I get in debates with who actually want to rationalize their beliefs that has no rationality behind them? So I think it is working to an extent that, okay, well, you have to keep attacking the irrationality, keep pointing out the irrationality. So even when you see a Sufi person dancing to some mystifying song, which he believes is mystifying, you can point out that this is irrationality. Even though I enjoy it, I'm enjoying the gathering, the fact that all people are there and they're having a good time. I enjoy that fact, but I want to spoil the party by telling you it's all bullshit.
That's okay, but then see, I've had these discussions with many, supernatural believers, and they've always said that, can you rationalize love? I mean,
Of
I
course,
actually go ahead and I actually give them a
yeah,
rational case for love, but
yeah.
that's an evolutionary case. But the point is, what
It's
they're trying to,
irrational. It's
yeah,
still rational.
yeah, it is. But the point is, I think sometimes what and I include myself in that, what we tend to do is we negate the value that moment provides to them. I mean, when see, I think the whole discussion is lopsided. And I read a very interesting article on this website called Big Think about that. And I actually was like, okay, somebody else thinking like me. Everybody is obsessed with what goes on in the religious person's brain. I think it should be the complete opposite. What is going on in our brain? People like you and I, atheists or skeptics. What goes on in our brain? What is our neurophysiological makeup that makes us different from them? I am telling you, beyond a point, everybody clings on to some kind of structure. There are very few people that I've met in my life who are very comfortable living without the structure of some sort. Like, I'm actually genuinely okay being a fierce individualist. I'm very happy with my 2 3 friends. I know it sounds very weird, but I'm genuinely like that. Like, I have my 2 3 friends, I have my family, I'm actually set. I genuinely don't crave this, I need 50 people in my life, I need some big community. I call myself part of a community out of pure rational choice because I think geopolitically it makes sense in today's world when the whole world is full of maniacs. You have to pick a camp. I'm sorry, it sounds very crude, but yes, the world is full of maniacs. They want to kill you. I'm picking a side. It makes perfect rational sense to me. But at my core self, I mean, I always say that I'm none of these things. But the point is, most people crave it. Yeah, and I know a lot of people don't want to accept it, that theists, and there is research on that, are more happy than atheists. There's something there. I mean, I know it's very unpopular and somebody will share one result, but I was looking at the meta-analyses. Study after study shows theistic people tend to be happier than atheistic people. How can we deny these things? There is something that damn booga booga offers to them. So how do we, negate that? Like, I'm personally a very happy guy, by the way. I'm not saying you're
Oh
unhappy.
my. Yeah, I'm very happy too. I think Sam Harris. I think Sam Harris gave a very good argument on that. He said, "Well, imagine there's someone who believes that one day, I know it in my heart. I believe for sure that Angelina Jolie is gonna be my wife. I believe it in my heart. That's gonna happen. It's bound to happen. Angelina Jolie being the most beautiful woman at that time. I think she's still beautiful, but I just believe in it. Every day I wake up and I just wake up with the thought that 5 years from today, 10 years from today, Angelina Jolie is going to be my wife and I'm going to be traveling the world with her and she'll be in my arms. And that brings immense happiness. There is a reason where people find a lot of comfort and happiness in daydreaming. It's obviously a known fact. To be honest, I'm actually a bit of a daydreamer myself. Obviously, nothing related to the supernatural bits, but I think of a better world. I hope, I imagine in 50 years from today, my country of birth will be secular. I believe that everyone will get along fine. It may happen, may not happen. I may get killed tomorrow by some jihadi. I don't know, but it does give me comfort. And a lot of people have told me that you're overly optimistic, and being an optimistic, it actually does bring some sort of happiness in your life. So you can. And look, I mean, religious people, and this is what I discuss in the book, that religious people are somewhat optimistic, but it does come at a cost, which I cannot ignore if you're rational. I cannot imagine how religious people are actually happy, because they should be fucking scared of going to hell all the time. They should be scared, right? I mean, I just had premarital sex with someone. Allah hates premarital sex. Am I going to go to hell? Am I going to spend 7 years in hell, 10 years in hell? What's going to happen? I remember this guy when I was a kid, and this guy, he was about 3 or 4 years older than me, was a very good friend of mine. And he was obviously, I was probably about 13, 14. He was about 18, 19. And he was saying that, like he had just met a girlfriend and he was just having sex with a lot of girls. And I said, well, zina, which is premarital sex, I said, this is gunah kabira. I mean, this is like the biggest sin after shirk, after equating someone else to Allah. It is one of the biggest sins, and you're going to go to hell. And then he quoted me a hadith. He said, no, Prophet Muhammad said that I will get my I will get my followers to heaven anyway. So that was his way of rationalizing it, right? That don't worry about it. Just fuck all you want, drink all you want. You're gonna go to heaven regardless. So that was his way of countering his fear, because me being a kid, I was afraid of that. No one wants to be tortured for eternity or any amount of time, where your skin is melting and you're burning in hell. No, we can't even hold a burn on our finger when we're cooking our favorite meal. When we're cooking our aloo gobi, and we don't want to get burned. Then so how would you like to be burned just for these 3 minutes or 4 minutes of enjoyment with however long you last? So that was his way of rationalizing it. So people are always rationalizing to some extent. I genuinely believe that people are actually rational, and that's how we counter it, by actually exposing the irrationality in that. No, hang on, you might still go to hell. And this is what I wrote in the book as well, that the concept of heaven and hell, invented by men to sell it to other men, because it is highly uncomforting to know that you're going to die and you might go to hell. Every person, every Muslim I've known who's close to death, whether that's a Muslim or a Christian, believer or a non-believer or a semi-non-believer, is always terrified on the deathbed. My partner's dad was he's in the hospital right now, and I don't think he's a big God believer, but he's never spoken about his atheism either. I don't think he's an atheist either. He's probably someone who never gave it a thought. But he on his what he thought would be a deathbed. We're hoping that he might recover, and he you know, like, I've never seen him cry. I've always seen him laughing and, you know, being very confident, man's man. And he cried a little bit. He probably could foresee that he's dying and this is a goodbye. Probably not because of the fear of hell, because death is a fucking scary thing, right? We're never going to see our cute puppy. We're never going to see the love of a life. We're never going to see our parents again. That's a very depressing thought. And atheists have to come to terms with it. And I know the religious people would be like, okay, I might not see them again, but I think religious people believe in their heart that one day I'm going to see my grandmother. One day I'm going to see my mother. One day I'm going to see my kids in heaven. But I think, why are they scared of dying? I think they're scared of dying because maybe they're thinking that maybe I have to go to hell. What's going to happen? You know, just before the exam, I don't know which school you went to. In my school, we used to get slapped if we didn't learn a lesson, or if you couldn't recite the chapter. So anyway, I remember that. I was talking to someone. I was actually speaking to Spartacus about that. Do you remember that time when a couple of kids down the line, your teacher is asking him questions if he did his homework or not, and you have to memorize everything. You know, ratta lagana, you know, you have to memorize everything, and you have to recite the whole chapter. And so he misses it, he gets slapped, and we're like, oh fuck, I'm next. It's my turn next. I can't remember that now. So there's that fear, right? And I think the same fear comes to the minds of these believers at the very last minute when they're about to die. Am I going to go to hell? I'm going to be speaking to the angels, or I'm going to be speaking to the God. What's going to happen? And I don't think it's hardly any comforting as people make it out to be. So I don't know why people are more happy when they're religious and atheists are not religious. I do remember the time when I had freshly become an atheist. I did go through a bit of a depression. I smoked pot for the first time, and I mixed it with alcohol. And I was fascinated by the night sky. I looked at the night. I should have written that in the book. That was a very funny experience I talk about, which was very fresh when I had met my partner. I think it was about 12, 13 years ago now. Well, actually about 11 years ago. I was smoking pot. I was drinking alcohol. I had just met my partner, the love of my life, and I was freshly in love. So there was no reason for me to be depressed. And I was at a balcony of an apartment, which is, I don't know, 4 or 5 stories up in the sky. And I was looking up in the sky, and I was like, wow, what is the purpose of this shit? You know, that if a black hole comes this way, it will swallow the pyramids of Giza, it would swallow the Mohenjo-Daro, and it would swallow the Empire State Building. The whole planet will be gone, and nobody would ever know that Harris. I know it is a bit it's a bit selfish in that sense, or narcissistic in that way, that no one is going to know that Harris Sultan lived here once. You know, he was cool. He thought about all these things. And I was like, and I got extremely depressed at that very moment, that I thought, you know, I don't want to live in this life. And you know, luckily, I went to bed. My friends were like, okay, they were laughing. I took my clothes off. I was like, man, I want to jump over the balcony. I want to find out what happens. I want to know what happens after you go. I mean, I was a new atheist. Probably you could say I was going through these different thoughts in my mind. It's very comforting, right? If the black hole swallows the whole Earth, everything is gone. So what? When you wake up next time, you're going to be in front of God, and God is going to greet you with all love, and he's going to say, yep, here you go. There's a heaven. So you can enter heaven and enjoy your life. But I wanted to know, because I was starting to doubt it. And Anyway, the effects of alcohol and marijuana went away, and the next day I woke up with a massive headache, and I was happy that I hadn't jumped over the balcony. Otherwise, I would have never found out. So yeah, I think it still surprises me that why religious people are happy. I think it's still delusion, and I gave you Sam Harris's analogy of believing that one day you're going to marry Angelina Jolie. Why atheists might get depressed is probably because of a nihilistic view of yeah.
I
Oh,
think I think we all have to realize something, that everybody has different a priori assumptions when they
mm,
rationalize their case. So I'll tell you my particular case. When I realized that, oh, most of this is bullshit, and we just have one life, most probably, I had a completely different reaction than probably somebody else would. So I never went through any depression, nothing. I was like, okay, so I have one life.
you
Now
never tried marijuana.
so that maybe that's the case. So I was very simple. I was like, okay, I have one life. Now let us make most of this life. Let me be as nice as I can to the people near me. Let me try to help the world, because I had only one a priori assumption always in my mind. I believe the survival of the human race, or the survival of all species, if possible, is a good idea. So, whatever is needed, what is the most rational thing to do in that case, should be done. And that obviously includes everybody on planet Earth. Obviously, I'm on team human more than team animal. That's a separate issue. But I'm willing to take the animals in that moral arch too. Like, I am for ethical treatment of animals, etc., etc., etc. But I'm a non-vegetarian, so I have no issues in that. And I will be the first one when mock meat comes. I'll be the first one when it becomes easily available. I'll convert to it. I get the idea. But the point is that I never went through this. And what happens is, with religious people, I think that uncertainty, that, oh my God, you're dead and it's game over, it bothers them. And I think this whole comfort of, no, there's an afterlife, there is a heaven or a hell. And in the Hindus case, they keep coming back, you keep coming back. It never ends. You are going to come back again. Balle balle. It never ends for the Hindu, right? Wapis aate ja rahe ho. So it stems from that. But now I want to connect to. So I wanted to do three aspects of your book. The second one is, I find this very weird in Muslims actually, and tell me why. Islam is so anti-idolatry, right? मतलब नहीं कर सकते जी, नहीं कर सकते, नहीं होने नहीं देना, और छड़ना नहीं, और मूर्ति नु वेखदा है. So it's that kind of an attitude. But the amount of offense Muslims take when it comes to Prophet Muhammad, sometimes I feel they take more offense to criticism of Prophet Muhammad than even to Allah. I
mm.
thought you should be more offended when somebody questions Allah. Oh, nah. Oh, Allah nu bol de jao. Muhammad nu kuch nahi kehna. It's so weird. And you have basically, you have a whole chapter which you call the character of Muhammad, which is chapter 5. And I find it very funny. You just go on doing first woman, second woman, third woman, fourth woman, and you go all the way up to the 24th woman. So why were you so so obsessed with all the women in Muhammad's life? Why did you think of basically dedicating a chapter? Because I did not find this in Ali Rizvi's book. Ali was more about, okay, Quran claims this, Allah ne ye bola hai, and I'm going to give an answer to that. Now, why did you choose a whole chapter on Prophet Muhammad? And can you explain this to me? If Islam is not about idolatry, why are they so obsessed with a human being?
Yeah, look, it's a funny one actually. I mean, even when I was growing up, I'll tell you something which was very strange. I always found it very strange. It's trivial. You might not think of it. We say God. We refer God as you. In Urdu, we have the word tu or aap. Aap means it's more respectful. If I say aap kya kar rahe hain, meaning what are you doing, but in English, it's the same. You is you, right? But in Urdu, you have aap, which means you, for in respect or for multiple people. But in Urdu, you have tu, for which is also for you, but for a person who's more junior to you and you don't have any respect, or it's something thrown around very carelessly. I think Italian language is pretty sane. So in our society, God was always referred as tu, and we used to say, well, hang on, we refer to tu, which is you, with a bit more carelessly, not something with respect. So why are we referring to God, who we should be most scared of, most respectful of? Why are we referring him to tu in a derogatory way? And with Muhammad, we would always use the word aap, mean you, with respect, right? And we would even write sallallahu alaihi wasallam on top of aap. So it kind of always bothered me. So I always used to say to God, to Allah as well, I used to refer Allah as aap as well, not tu. Just because I was like scared, this is something amazing being, we can't really disrespect him. But the rationale on the other side was like aap could be used for multiple people, but God is only one, so that's why we only use tu. Tu can only be referred to one person. But then after that, I thought about it a lot later. That why is it that Muhammad, that you can question God, but you can't really question Muhammad? You can pretty much get away with a lot of things if you question God, if you question Allah. But the moment you say something about Muhammad, if you bring up his wives, for instance, or if you bring up his attitude, no, that's off the book. You can draw God as well. If I drew God, no one would give a fuck. If you remember the movie The Bruce Almighty, right? It was only banned in Egypt. It wasn't banned in any other country. No, but Muslims didn't even notice. They didn't even care that Morgan Freeman was pretending to be God. Even though pretending to be God is considered a very bad crime, but when you put it in perspective, people really don't really care. The Bruce Almighty was only banned in Egypt, and there was nothing happened in Pakistan, nothing happened in all the in Turkey or Indonesia, Malaysia, as far as I know. I can only speak for Pakistan for sure. It was a pretty popular movie. But the moment you draw Muhammad, you're gonna see Karachi, Lahore burn. You're gonna see embassies burnt down. So what is that problem? And I think the only reason is Muhammad actually created this idea that he is the beloved person. He's the nicest guy. He's the coolest guy. Love me. And if you don't love me, kill someone. And I think most of it is actually, the hadiths that are about loving Muhammad are actually very, they're not the central part of the belief. These are just passing remarks. These are passing hadiths. So if the scholars had not really made it such a big issue, most Muslims wouldn't have cared about it. Again, most Muslims are actually, as I always say, they don't know anything about Islam. They only go with what they are told about it. And the scholars made it out. And scholars had to suck up as well. It's the same thing that nationalists do as well. To prove that they really love their country, they have to go above and beyond to show and express their love for their country. Same with Muslims as well. To show their Musalmaniyat, the Muslimness, they will go above and beyond and say, nobody can say anything about Muhammad, the greatest man who ever lived. Even though I think there's not really anything in the actual literature of Islam that is, it's not in the articles of faith, it's not the 5 pillars of Islam that, blasphemy is that big of an issue. Muslims have actually made it more of an issue because they wanted to suck up. They wanted to show that this is like a religious nationalism, that they wanted to show that we really love Muhammad. And I think they went a little bit too far. They focused more on Muhammad, and they didn't focus enough on Allah. So you can actually question Allah. What's gonna happen? I can assure you, even if you swore at Allah, people are just gonna say, oh, you're just misguided, learn about it. But if you swore at Muhammad, you're in a different league of trouble.
So I think in Hindi we say na naya mulla namaz jor se padta hai, or the new convert usually is the most vociferous and the violent one. So it's a bit to do with that, because I want to connect it to the Babri Masjid issue in India. If you look at it from a purely Islamic perspective, why are the Muslims so obsessed with the structure? The moment they get obsessed with the structure, that's like you're obsessed with stone. If
Yeah.
you're obsessed with stone, you're committing idolatry, which is the biggest sin in Islam. So I don't get it. I mean, for Muslims, the mosque is just a place where you go and worship. There is nothing divine or supernatural to it. That is a Hindu issue, right? But the Muslims are like, nah, nahi hone denge udhar. Humko wahan masjid chahiye. Why? I mean, the Hindus are offering, will build a place 4 times the size of that masjid, and we'll make it a state of the art place. The Hindu society will do it, but nah, we want Babri Masjid. It's very weird. It's I find it fascinating
I
that
think
go ahead.
I think with the Babri Masjid, that's a whole different issue, because it was actually demolished, and then there's a problem there. But there's so many fucking contradictions in Islam that I just don't understand. Like in my, I can't remember if I was in the 6th grade or the 5th grade or maybe the 7th grade. We had a chapter. We had only one period, one class, half an hour a day on religious studies, which was obviously Islam. If you were Christian, you could go to Bible studies. But and I remember, I can't remember which grade it was exactly. But I remember this, that you know, um, and it was mixed with the Indian studies and all that. That how stupid are Hindus? How can they create their own god with their own hands? These gods can't even move. How stupid are they? So that's the case they're building against idols and the statues and the people who worship them. Obviously, as I grew up and I realized, hang on, they're not saying this is the actual Ram Krishna. they're just the symbols of them. Big fucking deal. But you're doing a similar thing. You call it a house of God, the Kaaba, right? It's the house of God, the oldest worship place. All types of mythologies behind it. But you're circling it 7 times. How are you not seeing this as some stupid fucking exercise? I mean, your God is looking down and saying, "What the fuck are these idiots doing?" They're just going around and around in circles, just screaming same shit. Why don't they see that? Because Muhammad made up shit as he went along, and he cut down. Apparently, he cut down a tree under which he used to sit, and he cut it down because he said, "I am worried that people will start worshipping this tree, and they will become kind of like idolaters." But they are fucking going around a Kaaba, man. What are you doing? I mean, what's the difference between Kaaba and a rock? I mean, you're still circling it, and that is, unlike blasphemy, that is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. So that is one of the fundamental pieces. Sure, you don't make a statue of Muhammad. Okay, that's where you differ. But you are actually circling a piece of rock. What is this? What is this nonsense? They would give you all types of reasons. Well, it's just symbolic. Well, why can't you accept that Hindus are symbolically worshipping? But no, they would never go that far. Again, I mean, that's why you should buy my book. There's so many more contradictions. I could have actually written a book which was 500 or 600 pages long, but I wanted to keep it short, and I still feel that there's so much missing in the book. But it's highly entertaining, so please do buy it. As many pages there are in there, you would definitely enjoy it. But there's definitely a lot more, and I've already got a couple of ideas to write. I was first thinking that once I've finished this book, I would write on the early history of Islam, about the 4 caliphs. So I want to call it the 4 horsemen of Muslims. But now I'm thinking there's actually so much more that I've missed. I mean, as you rightly said, I only discussed the wives of Muhammad, as opposed to all the other violence in Muhammad's life, the early life of Muhammad. There's so many other people who believe that Muhammad has some serious psychological issues. He was probably schizophrenic, and he had all these illusions and delusions. And there's so much to talk about the life of Muhammad himself, that I'm thinking maybe instead of before I go to the 4 horsemen of Islam, I should probably focus more on a little bit on the life of Muhammad. But I think I just spoke about just to conclude this, I just spoke about the 24 women in Muhammad's life. There were actually more, but I was just being charitable, and the evidence was a little bit sketchy. So I spoke about it because sex is such an obsession in the Muslim world. On one hand, they're so against sex in a way that premarital sex is evil and bad. And on the other hand, their own prophet is, like he loves sex, man. But I've got a couple other words that I can use, but I don't want to make him angry. But he fucking loved sex, and it's just bizarre though. And that's why I'm not married to my partner. And my partner always asks me, like she doesn't really care as much. But I say, well, I'm not going to marry because it's a religious institute, and I don't want to say. I just don't understand, what are we going to do in marriage, in religious ceremony, in religious marriages? They quote some verses from the Quran, or you go to a church. What's the fucking point of it? Is my love going to change if we do that? Of course not. We've been going strong for 11 plus years, and hopefully we'll keep going on forever. And what difference does it make that Muhammad said, okay, you have to recite these verses and then you can sleep with her? What's the fucking difference? So it's just bizarre that he actually had so many sexual partners, and people at the same time are so obsessed with sex in Islam. So that's why I wrote mainly about his women. And people, I hope at some point they might think, because a lot of ex-Muslims are actually they're highly critical of Muhammad because of his lust for women. And I think maybe that is one of the points that can actually capture the minds of or the imagination of the young people, and they can say, wow, what kind of a man he is, like, I mean, we all like to have sex, right? But this guy just, boom, he's like he's not holding himself back.
Yeah, he was a happy camper, is all I can say. And as far as the institution of marriage is going, I'm a textile fabric manufacturer. I support the institution of marriage completely. Mera आधा business उस पे चलता है. So please get married, humans.
Okay.
It's very good for my business. The more you get married, the more fabric I'll manufacture, the more money I'll make. So you just get married for me. That's all. I don't care about anything else. Just keep Kushal happy. Okay, now let's go to the later part of the book, because I think this is very important. And I try to bring this out every time I have this discussion. And I was glad that you touched upon the Islamophobia chapter. You have a chapter dedicated to Islamophobia. So I want to break this down into two forms. Obviously, there is one side, which is the mainstream left-wing narrative across the board, where the moment you criticize Islam, you get called an anti-Muslim bigot or an Islamophobe. In India, like I said, you get called a communal person. This is the stupidest word ever. It gets to me, that word. So there is one side to it, but then there is this side, whether it's in India with a certain section of non-Muslims, and whether it's in America or in UK or in Australia, there is genuine Muslim hatred. It exists. People are not able to rationalize that, okay, Islam is a set of ideas. People who believe in those set of ideas, they are the problem. But not every Muslim believes in those set of ideas. Most Muslims are like other religious people. They are cafeteria religious, people where, someday I like idli, someday I like dosa, today I want to have pasta. So one day they like the Meccan verses, the other day they like the Medinan verses. They are as confused as the other religious person on the street. Now, how do we distinguish? I get the Pew polls, I get the views on homosexuality, I get all of that. Having said all of that, you cannot sit across the table with a Muslim and think that that Muslim is part of that group. You have to learn to rationalize. And what I feel is at times, look, this is my criticism of the left wing in India, when they went after Hinduism in a big way, they did not realize that a lot of Hindus got typecasted outside India. They did not realize that. I'm telling you, they made that mistake. Hindus are kind of looked down upon. Hindus as individuals, not Hinduism. In the West, I have seen it. I saw it personally when I used to live there. I'm not saying all of them do that, but there is a segment there that dislikes Hindus for the views of Hinduism, which is ridiculous. The same thing can happen to a Muslim too, Harris. So how do we deal with both sides? The side that calls you an Islamophobe at a drop of a hat, and the other side that becomes extremely anti-Muslim and bigoted too.
I think I should have been clear that the Islamophobia term is usually thrown at our allies, the Western allies, people who stand by us or who want to stand by us. As I said earlier in the podcast, that I don't necessarily get called. Well, I do get called Islamophobe from my own people, from Muslims, from people from my own society, but not by the Westerners. As I said, they can't call me racist. They can't call me anti-Muslim bigot because my skin color is a big advantage in my case. In this case, they're scared to call. Like it's like if a black person speaks against Black Lives Matter, a white leftist is not going to call that black person a racist. It's just it's very similar to that. But the black people within that group or within the black community, that person who criticizes Black Lives Matter can be called, a racist person towards his own race, or a porch monkey, or whatever term they want to throw at him. So Muslims can call us Islamophobes, which is fair enough. I can deal with that. And I don't think that mainstream Western public is aware of Hinduism as much. There's a lot of good portrayed about Hinduism as well. Every gym I go to, there is a yoga session. There's a yoga class. I think, and people talk about yoga. The term karma was popularized in the 21st century. Like everyone talks, the karma will bite you in the ass. So all this, and Buddhism has made great advancements as well. Like the meditation is so popular. I think Hinduism is definitely nowhere near the anti-Hindu bigotry is nowhere near anti-Muslim bigotry, and there's a reason behind that. Hindus, as you've always said it, that Hindus are a bit more placid culturally. They have been, although I don't agree with that when I see these Hindu nationalists in India. That's why it's very surprising when I hear you and then I see a lot of these other attacks and this aggressive mindset. I don't understand that. But anyway, we can talk about it some other time. But anti-Muslim bigotry is actually very real, and there's a reason for it. Hindus are not blowing, they are flying planes into buildings. Hindus are not stabbing English soldiers or Western or American soldiers. Hindus are not doing anything. If anything, the any Hindu that is probably your IT guy who goes to an office or probably drives a taxi, and he's very docile and placid. Indians are kind of I kind of laughed at because of the Bobs and Vegana requests that they send, but that's different. But I think that usually originates from India, not by Hindus or Indians in the Western world. They're highly civilized, highly educated, and very successful people too. So they are respected for good reasons too. As I said, because the violence is not there. But with Muslims, there's this extreme problem. There was this mass influx of ISIS brides and the people who were born in England and Europe, and they went to Syria. The people like Anjem Choudhury, this radicalization, the demand for Sharia law. There is hardcore violence amongst Muslim communities in the West. So that's why Tommy Robinson, you would never see people like Tommy Robinson talk against Hindus. In fact, they use Hindus and they say, look, I'm not a racist. I have no problem with the Indians or Hindus or Far East Asians or Asians. They use that and they say, no, I've got a problem with Muslims because of such and such violence and jihad and demand for Sharia law. So definitely there's more anti-Muslim bigotry. I've seen far too many videos where just a normal hijabi girl just walking down the street and she gets punched from behind. Something similar happened to Majid Nawaz as well. That guy was probably a full hardcore racist. That guy, Majid Nawaz, could easily have been an Indian and a non-Muslim because we obviously had the brown skin. I doubt this guy knew he was Majid Nawaz. I guess we'll find out when we get more detail. So, if anything, those anti-Muslim bigots and the bad behavior of Muslims has actually even put the poor Indians in the firing line as well. You might remember when 9/11 happened, a lot of Sikhs started getting attacked because people thought that they were Muslims. They wanted to punish Muslims for doing for what happened. Again, not the fault of an ordinary Muslim, but those were the repercussions. And I think a lot of people could actually say, I always say to a Pakistani, if he gets in trouble amongst anti-Muslim bigot, just say I'm a fucking Hindu. You know? so you might not get attacked. Say, hey man, I'm a Hindu. I don't. But Muslims have another problem. So I think the only way to recover is obviously, again, I mean, it might be a hardline stance. I would say that I think the responsibility lies on Muslims. If people view me as an Harris Sultan, if people view me as a narcissist or as an arrogant or you know, whatever, violent or evil man, then I think a lot of responsibility falls on my shoulder. I have to be careful. I have to project my image that I want people to see me as, or whatever I am. So I think same responsibility falls on Muslims. I have said it numerous times that back in the day in 2001, I was in Lahore at that time when September 11 happened. There were people happy dancing in the streets of Lahore when September 11 happened. The whole narrative has changed. A lot of Muslims, forget about America, because America had a bigger stick. Forget about America. Even in India, I know a lot of people would say, well, there were a lot of laughing emojis when this Pulwama attack happened. But a lot of Pakistanis, when they try to have a civil conversation, they actually condemn what happened in Pulwama and the 42 or 43 Jawans that got shaheed, that got killed in that attack. But the narrative is changing that if we laugh at it, if we actually support terrorism, we are actually showing our violent face that we hate so much. You know, I think that meme has done a lot of good to the world. That say Islam is a religion of peace, otherwise we'll behead you. You know, that kind of mentality. It's a simple point, and I think Muslims are somewhat realizing it, and they're saying, okay, we need to do something different, and it might take some time. But I think the responsibility lies on Muslims themselves to project their image. Yes, there will always be white skinhead racist bastards out there who would not accept you. But we can see, even in the current climate, when everyone should be hating Muslims, there are a lot of people who are not anti-Muslim bigots. There's still a small percentage who hate, who are anti-Muslim bigots. And that we can even reduce that percentage even more if Muslims actually start behaving. If people like Anjem Chowdhury disappear, if people like, I don't want to say Ali Dawah, but there are the Dawah man who makes such stupid claims on you. If those kind of people actually disappeared, I think we would have, we can reduce anti-Muslim bigotry even more.
Yeah, you make a very valid point, and that has always been my concern. Like this whole month, in fact, I dedicated this whole month to chatting with ex-Muslims. So all 4 guests this month have been ex-Muslims, and I have asked this question every time. Every time I have this discussion, people who might listen to me regularly, they might be like, "Yeah, he's like a broken record. He keeps talking about this." It's not that. You have to realize, if even within, and this is my message to Hindus too, if you want to win the narrative battle, you have to, at the end of the day, showcase very clearly that your objection is to Islam and a set of ideas, not to Muslims, because you will have Muslims as your own kith and kin. Muslims are an integral part of India. So we have to make sure that our bigotry, any kind of bigotry, should be opposed. So whether it's bigotry from Hindus towards Muslims or from Muslims towards Hindus.
And Kushal, I want your viewers to actually notice that too, and you might have noticed that too. In my last 20 years of observing, as I said, like, I've always said that after 9/11, the world changed. For a very long time, people, the biggest criticism Muslims used to face was, and even if you look at Christopher Hitchens died in 2011, I think, and if you look at his videos from 2007 or 2008, Christopher Hitchens and people like him would always say something like, why don't we see more Muslims condemning these terrorist attacks? Right? Do you remember that narrative? That why are Muslims not condemning it? And I think rightfully so, Indians have said that too. That why are you not condemning Mumbai? Why are you not condemning it? If you really are peaceful, why are you not condemning it? And we've seen that as well. We've gained more ground on that as well. There are actually a lot of Muslims who come out now who actually condemn now. The first thing they want to do is, whoa, we condemn Islam is a religion of peace. That's where the meme of Islam is a religion of peace came from. Because they're trying to tell you that, hey, we don't condone these kind of violent attacks. We are a religion of peace and we condemn it. So that we are gaining some ground. And I think we have to stay positive and hopeful that, Muslims, there is a serious reform movement going on in the Muslim world. There's a reform movement and there's an ex-Muslim movement. This is a two-pronged attack on Islam. And I think time will tell how quickly we get to our goal where Islam is, there will always be Muslims, but Islam has become very trivial, let's just say. It's just like Christianity. It's so trivial. A lot of people don't go to church. Those who go to church, even they don't take it seriously. So only time will tell how quickly we get to that stage. But I think we are heading more towards that than backwards.
I'll be more than happy if that is the case and that happens. And I agree. I tend to agree with you. I think the internet is going to break the back of Islam. Like nothing else in the world of the internet. We can quickly get material. We have access to so many amazing podcasts, so many amazing ebooks, and it's just a ocean of information out there. And even if the social media giants wanted to do it, they can't avoid it. It's inevitable, because if they suppress that, there's something going to pop up, and the material is going to go there. So that's not the case. But what we have to watch out for, and I always this happens with me, when I talk to ex-Muslims or I talk to XYZ, they'll be like, there is a certain element within the Hindutva crowd. I'm not saying the entire Hindutva crowd is like this, but there's a certain element. They expect a kind of a purity test from me. I was like, oh, you call these people, they bash Hinduism, and my answer is, so what? They have every right to. It's not as if Hinduism is pure and there is nothing wrong in it. There's some freaking bad ideas in Hindu faith too, and we should attack them. They're okay if I do it, but why is the ex-Muslim doing it? Why not? They will do it. I mean, by that logic, I should not be going after Islam then. It's a stupid logic. It makes no sense. And you have to be more open than that. And if you're not, well, F you. That's my answer to everybody who expects a purity test from me. I'm not going to fall for your purity test. I stand for what I believe is the right thing to do. And I believe that we need to support all ex-Muslims, even if they are ex-Muslims who have converted to Christianity or Hinduism or whatever for their own personal reasons. It's a movement. It's out there. We need to talk to them. We need to give them a platform. We need to understand where they come from. And I want to close by, giving my final comments about Harris's book. Look, I had first thought of discussing this as in, we'll talk about the good stuff, and then I will maybe critique what I did not agree. But then, in the last moment, I had a change of mind, and then we kind of had those discussions about the value of religion, and it was in the beginning of the podcast. But what I liked about Harris's book, I'll give you my personal comments, is when I went through it, it is a very easy book to read. In fact, I would say if you have Muslim friends in India, I've already started doing that. All young Muslim kids, who read English, who go to schools, who are just cafeteria Muslims, gift this book to all of them. Make them read it. Make them think, because the language Harris has used is very, very easy to comprehend. And what Harris has done is basically he's explained his experiences, his interactions. Like there is a chapter in the end where he says how to talk to a Muslim apologist. Like, you meet apologists, right? Religious apologists. In fact, I would go forward and say a lot of arguments that Harris has presented can be used against religious apologists in general. That's my view. So you know what? I like reading passages from everybody's book. So I'm going to read the last paragraph that Harris wrote in his book. So here we go. We do not have to sink to their level. They have killed people like us for thousands of years. And we don't have to force our views on the religious zealots through violence. However, we must raise our voices to educate the ignorant religious. They may have guns, but we have words. Words that can help create a better world tomorrow. Words that will end the needless suffering of people across the globe. Most Muslims don't know the true Islam. The same goes for Christians and other religions. Education and counter-arguments are the only ways to eradicate the psychological disease called religion. I like that. My fellow ex-Muslims living in Western world, You have a great responsibility to fight for your fellow ex-Muslims living in oppressive Muslim societies. They yearn for the freedom of a free society that we take for granted. We may never be able to disprove the vague deistic God. However, we have disproven the gods of all known religions beyond all doubt. They have misogynistic, homophobic, racist, and fascist ideologies. Any sane person would oppose these ideologies. We need to guide our brothers and sisters out from under the cloud of ignorance and show them the beauty and morality that a world without religions can bring. Will you help us? Well, certainly I will help Harris in whatever way I can. And all of you, once again, whosoever is going to watch this podcast, the link, the Amazon link for India is in the description of the podcast. This is the book, The Curse of God, Why I Left Islam. Go there, buy it, gift it to your friends. And on that note, Harris, once again, thanks a lot for coming on the podcast. As usual, it's always been a pleasure talking to you, man. Take care.
No, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. Take care, guys. Have a nice day.